Tales of Darkness Discontinued Review. This is a Rainbow Quest / Twisted Rainbow AU, just so you know. A realm full of colorful thieves that represent each other of the rainbow, living in villages or kingdoms. But somewhere far away is an island full of multicolored and different kind of thieves. Even two-toned for three-toned thieves lived peacefully in this beautiful island and decided to explore the outside of the island. Then a certain someone came back from a different dimension and ran into someone. Will they adventure the new and improved realm, or will they fall and end up into a world war? Most characters don't belong to me, but other creators and Famous Saver. Story by The Kit and Cat. Chapter 1 Introduction. Hey, hi, it's the narrator here. A few reminders before you get into the story. Some of the new characters are either mine or some other people's, so you won't get too confused. If they actually belong to Sabers, but yes, some of Saber's characters will be in the story, so don't you worry. There might be a bit of fluff and positive actions, but they aren't related to any headcanon or non-canon ships. They're just a way to show friendship and how close they are to being similar to siblings. I may not finish this book completely, but it will keep me busy and remind me a lot of things, so don't you worry. Anyways, have fun and enjoy the chapters. Chapter 2 The Beginning. Years ago, a realm of full thieves lived in peace and harmony. There was no such things as darkness, nightmares, or chaos, until a rainbow thief was created and darkness appeared, causing havoc and destruction to the thieves. Until the hero decides to trap the darkness away into a secured place and separate themselves into crystals. Years after, two new thieves appear out of nowhere, one being a monochrome thief, while the other like a prismatic version of Rainbow Thief. The both of them stayed well until one of them chose to cause chaos and started attacking kingdoms. Upset and furious, for a reason unknown, until they were stopped by their own brother. Defeated and downed, he agreed to separate both of their powers into crystals to spread them across the world, leaving and disappearing right after. Darkness was once again released into the realm. After the two mysterious thieves disappeared, and the second hero was made again, I slammed the book closed inside, my legs dangling at the edge of the dock as I look out into the sunset, until a ocean-like Steve sat next to me. Hey, what are you reading there, Pris? Ocean asked. It's nothing, just some stupid fairy tale. The Tales of Darkness? Tales of Darkness, I replied back in a calm tone. Ocean looked at me in disbelief inside. You know, I always thought it was real, but it never was. He got up and turned around to head back to the kingdom. You coming? He asked. I'll catch up with you later, I yelled at Ocean as reaching the gates and headed inside of the kingdom. Maybe this fairy tale is true, but I don't remember a thing about my past. I thought to myself and got up, heading to the castle gates and back to my lovely home. Chapter 3. A Mysterious Return. This was years after the first chapter. Multiple strikes of lightning and thunder was occurring in the middle of a oak and birch forest. As the lightning and thundering stopped, a familiar figure appeared. Saber's Pulse. I wake up to the sounds of thundering and lightning, as my vision as well blurry until it was clear. I was lying on my back and sat up to look around my surroundings. This place feels familiar. It's like I've been here before, unless I finally got up and tried to dust off the pieces of grass on my back. But eventually I failed. Then there's a sudden feeling that I feel. Am I being watched right now? Hey, is anyone out there? I yelled out, as I catch a glimpse of some rainbow-like light on the ground. I tried to touch it, but it acted like it's a part of the sunlight, until I turned around to see a figure in a brown cloak or something. Their hair is so white. White? I think it is until they ran off. Wait! I don't mean any harm. Come back here. I started to sprint after them, without a thought. The cloaked figure kept on running away from me, and I had the moment to grab them by the edge of the cloak. They paused and turned quickly to stare at me, then finally took their hood down and snatched the edge away from my hand. Sorry, I thought you were one of them, they spoke, and they stared into their pastel orange eyes. I shook my head and asked, Who are you, and where am I? Also, what do you mean by them? I am Prismatic Steve, but call me Pris, and you're in the Steve realm. This forest is right next to one of the most populated kingdoms. They replied in a quick and worried voice. Wait, Steve realm? Does that mean... I can't believe this. But wait, why didn't they answer my last question? And you are? Prismatic Steve added on. I'm Saber, I replied, but was cut off as a branch snapped from somewhere else to us. Prismatic Steve quickly pulled their hood up and took out some sort of bow and arrow, pointing it towards the noise. A red figure walked out of the tree. So it really is real. Chapter 4. Runaway. Hey, hi. I know it's been a long time, but I'm trying to post three chapters. Depends if I'm busy or not. But I hope you're enjoying the story. Prismatic Steve's Pove. As I heard a branch snap close to me in Saber, I quickly pulled up my hood and took out my crystallized bow and arrow, pointing it towards the birch tree as a red Steve walked out from behind it. So it really is real. The rest Steve yelled in excitement. I never thought I'd be meeting one of the only Rainbow Steve and the hero at the same time. I shot a warning fire next to the red Steve as he flinched. The brunette non-Steve stared at me in confusion and back at the red Steve. Stay back, or it will be your arm, I threatened the red entity, and took out another arrow, but its tip was covered with poison. Oof. They ran off in fear as I lowered my bow, putting it away. Why did you have to do that? I turned as Saber asked. Ignore the question. I took out a spare cloak, which was a moss green color, and gave it to non-Steve. I suggest putting this on just so we don't get too crowded, since we're heading to another kingdom. I spoke in a calm manner. The blindfolded non-Steve took it and put it around him, lifting the hood up. Soon enough, when there was nothing but the sound of nature, I grabbed Saber's forearm and dragged him on the adventure of the Green Kingdom. Yahoo post swap. What? Saber's pove. A prismatic grabbed my arm and dragged me. Finally got time to go deeper into my thoughts. Why did he threaten a Steve, and why was he called Rainbow Steve when dearly he didn't look close to that? I was then dragged out of my thoughts when he stopped walking. It seemed like a kingdom with millions of planets surrounding it. This must be the Green Kingdom. I remember it being a lot more smaller, but it looks like it has grown a bit bigger. He walks through the kingdom as Prismatic Steve is finally lets go of my arm. I look around in AWE as there was so many plants on the ground, buildings and houses. My gaze was snapped away and stared at what seemed to be the lighter and much more nature-covered house. The cloaked Steve knocked the door and waited for someone to come. A green Steve opened the door and waved. As we were welcomed into his home, inside he did as so much more prettier until I caught my attention to another person. They were sitting in a stewed green couch and looked like some sort of skeleton wearing a steel scarf. Some sort of fedora, black jackets, dark gray pants, and dark teal shoes. Prismatic Steve called out, "Hey, long time no see, Emerald," as the skeleton waved a hand without even looking and raising it down. The white-haired Steve pulled down his hood and stared to introduce me to his friends. Apparently the green Steve is called a coral, and the skeleton figure is called a Feldswap Emerald. The three of them have known each other when they were attacked by some sort of Steves that would rather not explain any further. Coral gave us both resources and food for our unknown journey, and we left. Pris already had his hood up before he left the house. Finally, leaving the Green Kingdom and into a journey to something? Chapter 5. Journey to Somewhere. I'm starting to lose title name ideas. This might take a while. Anyways, enjoy. Prismatic Pulve. It was already sunset, and we left the Green Kingdom an hour ago. Saber's probably already starving right now, and I finally said a word. Let's set up camp and continue tomorrow morning. I paused as Saber nodded. Yeah, I'm already hungry for walking a while. The brunette spoke. We both set up our own tents and planned on who's making the campfire, and the other making the food. We both agreed on our decisions, and I started to grab some food, salmon, potatoes, and some sweet berries. Saber started making the campfire and completed it quickly before I had the meal ready. You done? You done? Saber questioned. Yup, I just gotta cook the fish and potatoes, and then we'll be having a great feast. I spoke, putting the potatoes and fish over the fire. We sat in silence and watched as the fire crackles and pops from the cloak logs. I didn't want to ask the non-Steve some personal questions and put them to myself until I smelled the fish and potatoes, and I knew they were ready. I grabbed them, both and placed the three ingredients into a paper plate, giving Saber the meal as he took it and began eating it. So how is it? It's great. I haven't eaten something as good as this, he said in a enthused voice. We both ate our meals and headed into our tents. Good night. We spoke as I laid on my sleeping bag, staring at the orange material of my tent. I finally slept until half an hour past. Wonder what will happen in the morning. Once we reach the destination we need to head to. Time skip. I woke up and saw the sunrise hit the edge of my tent. Getting out of the orange tent, I looked around and noticed that Saber wasn't awake yet and sounded peaceful asleep. I started to pack up my things and destroy the burnt out campfire to make sure that no other person follows our tracks. Thankfully, there was a lake next to us, and I sat at the edge, having my legs dangling in the water. I waited for the sun to rise above the trees as it painted the sky a baby blue and melon orange. Well, I wonder what else will happen today. Chapter 5. Fatal Memory, or 6. I'm sorry if I didn't get to make 3 exact chapters on time yesterday, but it will be 1 to 3 chapters now. Depends on my motivation and such. This is by the Kit and Kat. That's the top part right there. Saber's Cove. I was woken by the sun's ray hitting my blindfold. Wait, I forgot to remove my blindfold. I quickly unwrapped the black blindfold from my face and let the warm sun hit my face. Thankfully, I had a tent for myself, but Prismatic might see my eyes. He's still caring about that, so I'll let it slide. He reminds me too much of M. Never mind about that. I should get ready and pack up my things, I muttered to myself, putting back to my signature hoodie over my gray shirt. Then got out the tent, as I noticed a white-haired Steve sitting by the lake, as some kind of rainbow embry appeared on their hair in the sunlight. I put back my blindfold and packed up my things. Once I finished, I sat next to Prismatic Steve, as he was staring into the water, where his reflection stared back at him. He looked so sad. I decided to be determined and, "Hey, are you alright? You look a little down," I asked. "I'm fine, just some horrible memories came back to haunt me," he replied, and got up. Prismatic reached out a hand to me to help me out. I grabbed his hand and stood up straight. As he both headed back to the campsite, we took down our tents and put them away. But a flash was heard in the water, and both of us turned to face the lake quickly. Nobody was there, so it might have been a wild animal or something. We put on our cloaks and continued our journey to the west. I haven't asked on where we were going, but I want to have it as a surprise. Let's just hope it's not a major kingdom or anything closer to that. The Steve in front of me paused and continued on walking. Why did he stop? Until I noticed we were in some sort of village. It wasn't that interesting, so I kept on looking forward to see that we approached a house. It was big, so it must have been the leader's house. But we were quickly welcomed inside by a different Steve, and Prismatic already had their hood down. Wait, where did that pastel-colored rainbow go? Does that only happen in the sun? That might explain why he's called a prismatic Steve. I was snapped out of my thoughts when Steve hugged me tightly, and I had to hug him back when I knew that freezing cold touch. It's been so long, Saber. Where did you go? You were gone away for too long. The way Steve spoke like he hasn't seen me in years. I didn't know how to explain everything to him, but I just cried into his shoulder with happy tears. Yeah. Don't squeeze him too hard, Lay. Tell the leaders about him. Returning, alright? Prismatic Steve huffed in tiredness and laid on the orange couch nearby, falling asleep instantly. I stopped crying and let go of the hug, as Layton did too. It's hard to explain, but it's a long story. The orange leader was there too, surprised to see me again. He we all sat on a couch to the left of the prismatic Steve. What left of the one prismatic Steve was sleeping on. It's so weird having to meet my old friends again and letting them talk about everything that has been going on. I hope I get to stay here forever, where nothing bad is happening ever again. To be continued.